And I would encourage you to try and rectify that in the 48 hours that we have before we have to start amending this bill, because you haven't satisfied me as a legislator. And I think that there are other people on this committee that feel the same way across party stripe. We don't trust you.
Oh, yeah.
Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. Pretty excited to show this video. Michelle Rempel Garner, the Shadow Minister of Immigration, is relentless. Just watch her go. These liberal bureaucrats are always trying to dupe and distract, divide, trick you. Michelle Rempel Garner is fighting for Canadians. She's one of my favorites to watch on here. Let's take a look. She's got 2 rounds and she's going to cut them up. She doesn't trust them. Do you?
In 2012, former Immigration Minister Jason Kenney used one-time legislation in the 2012 budget to cancel specific applications. Why does the government need the powers outlined in this bill for application? Like, why couldn't you just put it in a piece of legislation?
Thank you for the question. So currently, no authorities exist to cancel applications en masse. The 2012 Federal Skilled Worker Inventory Elimination was accomplished through legislative amendments.
Right, but why couldn't you just do a piece of legislation?
Because it doesn't allow for the flexibility to define the public interest as well as...
Okay, so you, as the bureaucracy, want to be able to determine that without going through Parliament.
No, the policy intent is to be able to quickly respond to emergencies, crises, health issues.
So why didn't you define what public interest means in the legislation then?
Because there are so many potential instances. So that's why we were trying to say health, security.
But why isn't that defined in the legislation?
Because it just would too closely, I think, restrict us to only being able to apply a recommendation to the OIC.
It's a fairly big devolution of power to the bureaucracy from Parliament. And I'm trying to understand, because there hasn't been an instance given by you or the minister, an example of where that would be used, why that couldn't be achieved by legislation.
So may I offer some examples? Thank you. So quickly facilitate the extensions or stay for temporary residents in Canada following a significant natural disaster. When intelligence is received from security partners, if there's a suspected specific threat of foreign interference, electoral interference, espionage, we could pause any kind of applications in that process.
Why didn't you include a report to Parliament as part of the use of these powers?
Well, I think that we were trying to clearly indicate that there is no clear one path for the use of these powers.
Except for legislation, which has been used before, correct?
Right, which is a very defined portion of a one-time elimination of a backlog. It doesn't involve applications or documents.
Okay, so we've now got to the heart of the matter. Did you guys include this because the backlog's so big and you need to kind of a little bit?
So this is exactly why we didn't go with one-time legislation, such as was what was done in 2012 with Minister Kenney, because that was a one-time elimination of a backlog.
So you just talked about backlog.
The intention
would you ever
of
use
this
it to clear
has
a backlog?
nothing to do with
Chair,
backlogs.
point of order. Point of order, Chair.
Thank you. Point of order, Mr.
The witness has wanted to offer a full statement back. I'm not sure she's had the opportunity to do that on a few occasions here. Let's just allow for that.
Please let her answer the question.
Also not a point of order. Thank you. So I'll just ask again. So you brought up the point of backlog. I'm trying to figure out why I should support this. I'm on the fence, honestly, because it's a big devolution of powers. We've had a lot of witnesses say that I shouldn't. And I'm like, I need you to convince me, because the department has messed up. You guys have, you've said that there's fraud. There's a huge backlog. We all get casework. And now you're telling me that I should give my powers as a legislator to you without any report to Parliament. Why should I trust you?
So, I mean, I think the checks and balances are present there. The transparency through the publication of the Gazette, the conversations I will have
What
with
would be published in the Gazette?
any potential options around the public interest to suspend,
What level of detail?
cancel. Very detailed. It would have to be down to the type of application, the type of person. It would depend on the situation. It could involve you know, like I was saying before, in a healthcare situation, if we needed to mass extend healthcare workers because of a, you know, crisis in Canada, it would have to specifically say these applications of people who are already in Canada, they would be extended.
Okay.
The level of detail is there. But if going back to the legislation that was tabled in 2012, that is not nimble. It doesn't allow us as Canada
I know,
to
I
respond.
have a problem as a legislator giving you these powers, right? It's a big devolution of
Right.
powers, and I feel like the department and the minister hasn't done an adequate job. And what I would encourage you to do in the short time that we have left is explain this in more detail, because you guys got roasted by the legal community, ethnic media. There's a lot of fear over this right now, and I don't think you've adequately communicated what this means. And that's a problem for me as a legislator.
Right.
I have another set of questions with the time I have left. We heard this week that your department, as part of the bill review, had really kind of devolved the screening of asylum claimants through the use of this one-touch system. It was reported to committee by the head of a union, and it's very concerning. We also had stories from Global News that Hamas terrorists have been granted asylum claims. Your department couldn't answer an order paper question on how many citizens, criminals you gave citizenships to.
30 seconds.
What's going on with this one-touch system? Let's start there.
Perhaps I could answer that, Madam Chair, and I'll try to be quick. I'll touch on why we introduced One Touch, how we went about developing One Touch, and what One Touch is. And in fact, cast your mind back a few years ago, we were facing fairly significant volumes, overwhelming volumes at the border. And what we're
Hashtag welcome to Canada volumes. Yes.
Ms.
and we were-
Rempel Garner,
and-
kindly let him answer the question.
And so at that time, the practice was to actually adjourn a lot of these claims. And what that did was actually to push the risk inland and actually push the volumes inland. And this committee itself observed the number of the delays it was taking to get eligibility decisions with that practice. And so, in fact, our frontline staff, who were looking at how can we do this better, how can we do this differently, worked to develop a new process, which is what
It's a self-declaration.
Ms.
That's
Rempel Garner,
normal.
your time is up. I was just allowing our witness to complete his answer.
So fundamental to One Touch is it is not a self-declaration. In fact, the front end of it involves an in-depth review, by face-to-face interview, collection of biometric information, assessment by a highly trained and experienced border services officer who will make a determination based on the level of risk. Based on that level of risk, if the risk is low, we will then allow the administration portion of the assessment to be moved
Was
inland.
the head of the union lying? Was the head
I'm
of
sorry.
the union lying?
Thank you, Ms. Rempel
can't-
Garner.
Right, that was round one. Let's do round two. Michelle Rempel Garner is entertaining, right? Let me know in the comments.
You, Chair. I just want to go back to the mass cancellation powers. In earlier testimony, you've outlined that these powers could be used in cases of fraud. Do you plan on using them should the bill pass to address cases of fraud? Are there any active cases that you would use this on?
We don't have any active plans to use it, no.
So there are no active plans at present to use the power whatsoever?
No.
So then why did you propose it?
We proposed it on the tail end of experiences that we learned through COVID, where we saw that there could have been a need to have a mass power to extend or pause documents, applications. And so we thought that it was a good idea to be able to respond to crises, emergency situations
So Ms.
in a
Lang, if
nimble
you're sitting
manner.
here, we're sitting here in 18 months from now, and I pull this testimony up, you guys won't have, and I'm doing ATIPs on you guys, there's nothing that you would have been planning to use these power for? Absolutely nothing?
So we have no plans to use the power. We're not going to turn around if the bill passes and start submitting an order in council. I mean, there are going to be areas of the department, there could be groups that come to us to say, hey, maybe we should look at this. Like, there's emerging threats on a daily basis.
So I don't understand why it's in here then.
Because we don't know what's around the corner. So we need
but
that
you-
flexibility.
I also don't understand why you couldn't use legislation.
Because legislation takes a super long time to pass.
But this is a pretty big power, right? That you're
It's-
asking for,
It's a
so
big
shouldn't it
power with
require?
a significant amount of checks and balances. It's not
How,
one minute.
because you don't come to Parliament through this, right?
Point of
order. I love my colleague Michelle. However,
For the health and safety of our interpreters, this is difficult.
Is if you have no plans to use this, and there wasn't really a circumstance in the past where you needed it, why we should devolve these powers to you without any parliamentary oversight. Like, you're not making the case for me here. And I'm honestly on the fence.
Right.
Mr. Zuberi has raised some points about defining the powers. Why would we give you these powers if you don't plan to use them? Like, give me an example.
So an example is 6 months from now, we have intelligence that a country called Mike is planning foreign espionage, and we have received an uptake in applications. So we see that there's something weird going on. So instead of looking at these one by one, allowing these people to come into the country, tying up border offices, we could put in a recommendation to the Order in Council to say this cohort of applications with name Michelle Rempel Garner coming from Mike country applied here, we will pause and we will review them and we will try to build a case to see whether or not this is a risk to Canada.
But don't you have that power already today?
We don't have that
You
power
do under
already
ministerial
today.
distraction,
We
though,
do
right?
not. We do not have the ability to pause any kind of processing of applications. Mass.
I think
case
you
by
do,
case.
actually. I think
Case
you
by
do.
case.
I think if you look through it, you do. I don't think you guys have made the case, and that concerns me. I feel like you guys are hiding something, and that's the fact that you haven't defined the powers.
There's
There's no reporting requirement. I think you guys kind of swung and missed on this one a bit. And I would encourage you to try and rectify that in the 48 hours that we have before we have to start amending this bill. Because you haven't satisfied me as a legislator. And I think that there are other people on this committee that feel the same way across party stripe. We don't trust you. And so we need to have, you said that there's checks and balance in this legislation. I don't think there's enough. I'll leave it at that. Did you provide any advice to the minister on any other measures to reduce incentives to abuse the asylum systems that weren't included in this bill?
I can't comment on advice to the minister. We're here to talk about the measures that are being studied by the committee.
You can,
We look at
No,
kind
you
of how the
can. You
system-
actually, that's a valid question for the committee. Did you provide any advice to the minister, yes or no, on ways to reduce the abuse of the asylum system that aren't included in this bill?
1 minute.
I mean, we look at the system all the time in terms of how is it working, what can we do to improve it, whether
What's
that's
not included in
procedural.
this bill that could reduce the incentives? How about, let's say, restricting the access to federal benefits to emergency health care for failed asylum claimants? Would that reduce the incentives to abuse the system?
I mean, there are many things that could be explored. There are also pros and cons to each of those. You know, individuals such as failed claimants who are here and potentially subject to challenges with removal may find themselves in health emergency situations.
That's
and
why I said
require
emergency
support.
benefits, right?
So,
What about the pre-removal risk assessment process? Why didn't you recommend, or did you recommend limiting pre-removal risk assessment appeals or a new pre-removal risk assessments to when there's substantive new circumstantial change?
so the pre-removal risk
Very
assessment
quick,
process
15 seconds.
for those who already have had an Immigration and Refugee Board decision only looks at new evidence that
Like
has
what?
occurred since.
Ms.
So any
Rempel Garner,
change-
I'm sorry. That is time, you guys.
Thank you.
We have.
Aaron, Canadian Looney, we're going to wrap it up right there. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about Michelle Rempel Garner? What do you think about our state of immigration, migration into Canada? Are these bureaucrats in on it with the Liberals? Are they trying to destroy our country on purpose? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.